Good evening and hello and welcome everybody. This is a game I really want to share with you guys. I played this one earlier today and it is going to get very emotional because I'm going to die relatively fast and some of my teammates are going to be like, oh wait, he's 1800 ranked, how can he play like this? How can he die like this? This is horrible. And well, I have a slightly different perspective on this, and by slightly I mean radically different. I would like to share it with you, and at the same time this is going to be somewhat a wake-up call because I believe I'm observing that Canis is going to become the next gap of Rohan in terms of gameplay quality. In other words, there is no gameplay quality left. So what you're about to see is people handicapping themselves so much because of bad build orders within 3 or 4 minutes that they essentially commit suicide and don't have any leftover relevance in the game. This one is going bomber first. How do you rate an opening build order? You take a look at the build order itself, you take a look at the map, you take a look at balance, and you take a look at micro. Let's start by taking a look at the build order itself. So he made one power generator before the air factory, that's correct so far and that's great. He made the bomber first because it's called bomber first. He made a scout because the bomber doesn't have radar anymore. So that's great, okay, that works out. But in order to not power stall, you have to get one power generator, air factory, 2 power generators. Or 2 power generators, air factory, 1 power generator. You need air factory and 3 power generators before building any mixes, and 1 or 2 of them are going to be before the air factory and the others later. This is an equivalent trade-off pretty much. Either the bomber is a little later or you have a short period stall, but both bomber first build orders work out. What he's doing, however, building the bomber on just 1 power generator is going to fail. Now let's take a look at micro. So even though he has the scout and the bomber are operating in different places, and that is wrong. The scout should be around the bomber in order to allow the bomber to spot targets. And the most important targets here are the 2 yellow engineers you can see here. These are grabbing this expansion, and since Teal delayed his own expansion, he has to deny yellow's expansion in order to stay in the game, otherwise he's just handicapping himself. Now the bomber should turn around. This is doable with some micro, and it should kill those 3 engineers before they build the stationary anti-air turret. This is why I'm pinging it, and this is also going to make sure the bomber can stay alive for longer and deal more damage. But as you can see, this was way too optimistically calculated by Teal. He thought he can get away with killing this engineer and coming back for these before the anti-air turret is finished, and it completely failed. But honestly, even if he denied this anti-air turret, I believe that Teal would have still handicapped himself compared to yellow. Very bad opening. And part of the explanation is the map. Well, the travel time of the bomber first is high because Canis is a relatively large map. So by the time this arrives, the enemy already has started the 2 massing structure upgrade, expanded, own air, or whatever. Lots of ways to counter or minimize the effects of the bomber. Now, all of the cores are also close together. 5 cores in the same spot pretty much. If one of those players makes a stationary anti-air turret or one of those players makes mobile anti-air, then this defense is going to apply to all 5 cores. Because if the bomber wants to attack one core, it just has to travel through the other. And mobile anti-air can of course move around over here very easily. So bomber first, super easy to counter here. And bomber first, a somewhat viable opening in 2014-15 if you had great bomber micro and you could hover bomb a upgrading to 2 max and all engineers. But it was still risky then, and now it just sucks. And now let's take a look at this expansion. Well, Teal didn't send his engineer he made after the bomber and the scout to the expansion. He kept it in the base, and engineer 2 and 3 are also reclaiming around here. Only engineer number 4 is heading to this expansion, so this expansion is delayed. But there's more going on. Pink has stolen this expansion from Teal. Now, has he been malicious, or has he just not known that this expansion doesn't belong to him? Well, I don't know, but honestly it doesn't matter. If you don't know a map, you can easily watch a tutorial, a cast, a replay, there are tons of them. And you're going to figure out how to expand just by paying attention to these factors. You can also ask Asking is free. You can read the chat. We are actually telling him not to claim these mass extractors, but he's doing it anyways. And you can count. Counting is probably my favorite. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 core extractors here. 1, 2, 3, 4 extractors outside the base. Here, 4 core extractors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extractors outside the base. And here, 4 core extractors. 1, 2, 3, 4 extractors outside the base. Same for this slot. Air slot just has 3. But you can see there are at least 3 to 5 mass extractors outside the base. Otherwise, with just 4 mass extractors, you cannot really hope to stay in the game competitively. There is no plateau you can only reach by dropping some engineers there, so there's no obvious expansion the air player should get. And whenever there's no plateau or something like this, then the air player just gets the closest expansion to him, and that's this one. Now let's take a look at the fight over here. And this is actually pretty important, because there were 2 ACUs that killed my Hydra, they killed my T1 power, and they're now reclaiming the Hydra and the T1 power. And what is blue doing with those tanks? You can see they're going to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. They just keep circling around their own position, and they aren't really staying out of the range. So usually Aurora tanks should be able to outrange an ACU and never get any damage. They would deal damage but not receive any. However, with this kind of micro, he's just failing. I'm going to show you how you should not micro Aurora, and I'm going to show you how you should micro Aurora. Okay? Okay, how to micro Aurora. So we are going to attack this target. This is how we attack. Let's say this is an ACU and it's coming towards us. Then we are going to retreat, like that. 1 click to attack, can be on the ground attack order, fine. Can be back if you want to retreat. And then it's 1 movement order, alright? Now here's what we don't do. We don't use a movement order when we want to get close to the target and attack it, because then we're getting too close and the target can fire back at us if this was an ACU, alright? And what we don't do either, when you try to retreat, we don't do this. We don't do this, okay? We don't spam movement commands. Because do you see what's happening? Those tanks aren't actually moving. They are just rotating around their own position, but they're not moving. Okay, this is some sort of hover bug. Don't confuse them with too many commands. Just give 1 movement order and wait. That's fine. 1 attack order, 1 movement order. Not this and not this. Alright? Now back to this game. You may have realized that I took a bath with my ACU, because against 2 ACUs I cannot hope to do much, and Blue's reinforcements were late. Well, what am I expecting from my team here? If this was a 1600 ranked plus game, I would expect people to scout the incoming ACUs, and I would expect them to send their own ACUs or Blue PD or send land units or prepare some snipe in order to attack those ACUs and help me. Since this is not a particularly high ranked game, I would at least expect people to build something instead, okay? So since the enemy air player is sending his ACU, which could be reclaiming, it could be building, it could be upgrading in the meantime, and the enemy front player is sending his ACU, it could be building, could be reclaiming, could be upgrading, and instead they are just traveling and they are also spending some HP to reclaim here, I would expect Blue, the direct opponent of Red, to have something that creates a significant advantage over Red, because Red chose to fight against me. That gave Blue some breathing room and he didn't use it. Why is that? And same for Teal. Since Teal's opponent attacked me and spent his time walking instead of building, reclaiming or upgrading, Teal should have a significant advantage against Yellow now, but he does not, okay? So this is the mismatch I'm talking about. And sometimes I say that team games aren't won by good players, they are just lost by bad players. Then this is the sort of stuff I mean, okay? Everything you do in this game comes at the cost of not doing something else. And when you have 3 to 4 players attacking the same guy and you're not under attack, you need to do something. Because if you're not doing anything and the enemy gets away with attacking your teammate unpunished, you're going to lose the game. And rating doesn't matter here. Alright? Now, what do we have here? We already saw that 2 players ruined their start with bad build orders. Pink didn't take his own expansion, but the expansion of the air player. And Teal went bomber first and even a horrible execution at that. Now, what is going on green side? Well, green sent his ACU here to make a forward factory in the mass extractor. And I have sandboxed build orders on Canis with Bloodier for several hours, and we have a second air transport first build order that is pretty complex, but it allows you to get this expansion with an engineer drop. And in the transport, there are also enough tanks to defend this corner or harass your opponent. Depending on whether there's raid incoming, then you would drop the tanks with your engineers and protect them. And if there's no raid incoming, you would land those tanks here and destroy the air player's expansion, thus creating an advantage for your own air player. This is a fairly complex build. I don't expect people to know this, okay? So this is a build that allows you to get this expansion, wall it off, make some factories there, keep it, and at the same time T2 or a gun rush with your ACU in this forward position. What do I mean by T2 or gun rush? Well, I mean something like minute 6:30 maybe, when the upgrade is completed. Right now we are at 9:30 and the upgrade is not completed, it's started. Okay, so this is not a rush of any sort, and we don't see any tanks here protecting those engineers. The engineers are very vulnerable, there are no factories here, there are no PDs here, there are no walls here, there's no radar here, there's no hydro build, so this expansion is not being used effectively. Even though green is on the eco slot, he is one of the players with the worst eco in the game. Very sad. Okay, so next time green, the easiest thing you can do is build your 4 mass extractors, build your hydro after your factory, and then send the ACU to this expansion. Because if you send the ACU to this expansion, you cannot possibly lose this expansion. You can't lose it. You might lose this single mass extractor here, but some wall over here can correct this and nothing else happens. And that's totally fine, right? But you cannot just keep your ACU in the middle of nowhere and not have anything in your own expansion. This is going to lose the game, just like pink didn't take his expansion and teal didn't take his expansion because he made a bomber. Now what do we have here? We have spam from my direct opponent, and we haven't talked about my direct opponent yet, I believe. Let's slow the game down for a little bit. So I know that he is a Cetans player, he's 1400 rank, and Cetans player, when they don't play Cetans, typically have better eco than other players, but inferior decision making, okay? So my gamble here in this game is sort of that he's going to attack me with something that can't kill me. I'm going to overcharge and reclaim the rest, and this is how I can afford this very early T3 mass extractor and get a second T3 mass extractor from the reclaim I'm getting from this attack. At the same time, since I'm expecting some T2 PD creep, which I'm actually seeing here, this is standard Cetans front pretty much, and he's just applying this to Canis, I'm going for Vipers and a stealth field in order to destroy these point defenses inexpensively, okay? This is how I'm planning on fighting against my direct opponent, and the stuff you see here is not able to kill me. I'm talking about the orange units. I have enough HP and a fast enough overcharge, thanks to this T2 power generator, so that I wouldn't die there, okay? So I managed to fend off the attack of 2 ACUs on my power and my radar and my mass extractor and my hydro, and I'm still capable of stalling my direct opponent and out-ecoing my direct opponent because he attacked me prematurely, and all of that even though I couldn't upgrade here because I lost all this stuff, okay? But once player number 4 joins this fight with ghetto gunships, I'm just finished. I can't possibly survive that, okay? So in a situation like this, would I build flak? Well, I would only build flak if I know that T2 air is incoming, because otherwise, how am I supposed to build a T3 mass extractor if I'm building flak because I could be under attack, I'm building TMD because I could be under attack, I'm building I don't know what because there could be I don't know what, right? I'm relying on the scouting information I have. And let's take a look at the scouting information we have. So I'm switching to the observer perspective. Now I'm pausing the game. And here we go. So purple's air factory is not scouted. And we can see that there is some sort of factory, or there has been some sort of factory. But this could be a T1 factory. This could be a T2 factory. This could be a T3 factory. This could be a destroyed factory that was reclaimed to reintegrate it into the economy. This could be anything. So whose job is it to scout this thing? Now pay attention, guys, okay? This is important. So on any team map, the air player is expected to scout more than his direct opponent, because for some players, such as front or flank players, on one is flank players, on Canis is front players, it's just not economic to go for early air. So for these players, the air player scouts. And of course, the air player would also scout his direct opponent, because my opponent is going T2 air centric style. Okay, I might be getting away with a fast T3 air, or perhaps I should extend my T2 stage. This is something I only see by actually scouting my air opponent. Or my air opponent is making a calm draw, and I have to make swift wins. Well, I won't know that I have to make swift wins if I don't scout the calm draw. So I'm always scouting my direct opponent. And while I'm doing that, I'm also scouting the players around him, because on Canis it's just 2 scouts. It's 1 scout in this position, 1 scout in this position, and all 5 bases are going to be scouted. Okay, so very easy to have good intel on Canis. There is no explanation why we don't have good intel in Canis. Now, who else is responsible for scouting this guy? Well, if you notice that your air player is not scouting your direct opponent, you scout your direct opponent yourself. This is how team games work, okay? So green has scouts here, they're just idling there, and he doesn't know that his direct opponent has T2 air, okay? So general rule in team games, your opponent goes T2 air, you build something that kills T2 air, or you get own T2 air, okay? So you can go large scale T1 air and shoot down his T2 air. You can go for a land-based attack that kills his production before T2 air becomes relevant. You can make T2 flak and shields for yourself and all teammates, and this is how the T2 air of your direct opponent becomes irrelevant, okay? These are some ways how you can react to T2 air. But if you play land, and you fight against T2 air, and your land attacks don't manage to get through, even though your opponent is not actually playing land, but he's playing T2 air, then you're clearly doing something wrong, okay? Because it's like your opponent is fighting in another dimension at the same time he's fighting on your dimension, and while he's fighting on your dimension, you're not capable of beating him, even though he's busy elsewhere, okay? That just can't work, okay? Now, we did have some T1 air from green, but what are those? Are these interceptors? No, they are not interceptors. They are afterceptors. He's sending them after the snipe happened, okay? So this game, guys, was a complete shit show. And I'm asking you, send your ACU to this expansion if you don't want to go for the transport opening. You can go for the transport opening if you sandbox it first, but typically send your ACU here. If you're the air player, get this expansion. Your first engineer or your second engineer should go here. And you should wall it, you should TMD it, there's no TMD here. And if you're on this slot, this is your expansion. Now if you're on the bottom team, just flip it and it's going to be the same concept. So now we are going to keep watching this little game, and we're going to have some salt in the chat, and most of the salt is going to come from me, because I'm seriously angry about this one. This is just complete garbage. But let's keep looking. So blue tried to kill those 2 ACUs, or tried to tag those 2 ACUs that attacked my Hydro and my power generator after they retreated with T1 tanks. This is all these T1 tanks have done. So perhaps building T1 tanks is not the best thing you can do on Canis, because they just get killed by air by the time they arrive. And if they try to fight against an ACU, the ACU can just take some cover underwater. So shouldn't be doing this probably. Rather get some gun upgrade. That's much better on Canis. You can benefit from the water, maybe get some HP upgrade too. You can hide under the water to refill your shield, your HP, and then you can keep fighting. This has battlefield impact, but T1 tanks for Aeon on this slot next to the water, not so great. Now, let's take a look at this base. What's happening here? Well, he doesn't have TMD. Why doesn't he have TMD? Well, because on the one side, he's T1 spamming, even though it's not making any significant difference. We can see that his T1 spam is getting killed no matter where he sends it. On the other hand, he doesn't have T2 yet. So we have a T2 factory here that has TMD next to the T2 factory. We have a T2 ACU here that has TMD next to the T2 ACU, but we don't actually have TMD where we need it, namely in the base. So you can always say, okay, this game is very unforgiving, okay? You make a small mistake and it's going to change everything, right? It's just one bad decision and you lose the entire game. We saw that in the game where Orion played against me and made this bad Swiftwind engagement, for example. But, you know, guys, real life also has some mistakes you can make that are quite unforgiving. For example, you have sex with your girlfriend and you're not wearing a condom, and she gets pregnant and you are not ready to be a father. What do you do then? Well, you take responsibility and do better next time. So please do the same after watching this. It is Supreme Commander, it's just a game, but some things are just a big no-no, okay? When it's obvious that somebody is making TML, for example, you don't have to get TMD, you can also kill the TML. You can use T2R to kill the TML, you can get your own TML to kill the TML, you can make T1 spam and take out the TML and the PDs before he has them, but you cannot just die like this. It's very sad. So, this was a little bit salty, but at the same time it was highly educational, I hope. And please help saving Canis, because it used to be a great environment to play on, considering it's filling outside prime time and still somewhat decent. So let's keep it this way. Thank you, and see you next time.